Have you ever found a game that is so fun you cannot wait to share it with your friends? So you look at the back of the case and see that it says 1 to 2 players. You are so excited and immediately rush to try it out with your girlfriend, only to discover that the multiplayer is absolutely awful. You are totally crushed and now she thinks you're totally lame.
Unfortunately, this scenario is all too real. There are a lot of games out there that claim to support couch co-op, but what they really support is couch crap. Well, have no fear. Because today, to help you avoid some of that shame and disappointment, we have created a list of what we think are the worst co-op games for couples on the Nintendo Switch.
When we first started playing games together as a couple, one of the only co-op games we owned was Super Mario Odyssey. Playing this game in solo is a fantastic experience, and there's probably not a lot of people who have a Switch who don't own the game. The artwork is beautiful, the unique worlds are all amazing, and the concept of Cappy is so much fun. Cappy lets you take on the identities of your enemies, allowing you to transform into anything from your average Goomba to a freaking Tyrannosaurus Rex. Not only do you look like these baddies, but you have their abilities as well, meaning that as a tank you're able to shoot projectiles, while as a frog you can jump incredibly high. With a premise like that, what's not to love?
Well, unlike in other Mario games, Player 2 isn't Luigi, Peach, or Toad. In co-op mode, Player 2 takes on the role of Cappy. Yes, that's right. You get to play as a hat. A very animated hat, but a hat nonetheless. The only thing Player 2 is able to do is roam around, grab a couple of collectibles, and transform Player 1 into cool new characters. Cappy doesn't even get to use any of the new abilities. He's just kind of there. Not only that, but he is also completely invincible. There is no need to worry about taking damage or paying much attention to platforming challenges since he can just fly anywhere he wants. It's important to remember that we are talking about these games from a couple's standpoint. We're both experienced gamers and we want to have fun together. So if you are looking for a game to play with your kids, then some of these games might actually be perfect for you.
Have you ever seen an adorably cute game for sale on the Nintendo eShop and you just had to buy it? Well, that's pretty much what happened to us with Yooka-Laylee, not to mention its resemblance to Donkey Kong 64, one of Carly's all-time favorite games. This game is absolutely charming and has you playing as a little green lizard named Yuka and his bat sidekick Laylee in a beautiful 3D world. Your goal is to save your newly found golden book and the rest of the world's books from the evil villain, Capital B. The two of you head off on a platforming adventure filled with combat, punny lines, and unique abilities. Oh wait, when I said that the two of you head off on a platforming adventure, you didn't think that I meant one of you as Yuka and the other as Laylee. No, silly, why would you ever think that?
Again, a great single-player game that just did not translate into co-op well. Since the solo version is played as 2 characters, you would think that one of those characters could be given to Player 2 in co-op mode, but you would be wrong. Player 1 gets to keep both adorable characters, while Player 2 gets to play as a swarm of bees. That's right. Do you remember when we told you that you would have to play as a hat? Well, you would think that being a swarm of bees would be better, right? Wrong.
These bees are far less useful. All they can do is collect quills. No transforming Player 1 or attacking the occasional enemy. Just buckle up and keep your eyes peeled for the occasional collectible that Player 1 could have easily retrieved without your help. Not to mention that Player 1 has to stand completely still and let you collect them since you are locked in a 2D plane while Player 1 gets to explore a 3D world. It is such a shame that this game was already set up with 2 characters, but they decided to add a swarm of bees to create a co-op mode. Sadly, this made Yooka-Laylee one of the worst co-op games we have ever had the displeasure of trying.
While the story mode's multiplayer is absolutely dreadful, the game does redeem itself a tiny bit with the multiplayer arcade mode, featuring Mario Party-esque minigames. These games range from capture the flag to go-kart races. While they are fun, they can be a bit confusing at times since every player is the same character. This, along with the fact that there are only 8 minigames that quickly lose their value after a couple of rounds, means that Yooka-Laylee is still at the bottom of our multiplayer list.
Growing up, the game that I played the most was Pokemon Fire Red. So you can imagine when I found out there was a remake of these games called Pokemon Let's Go, I was ecstatic. In addition to that, the first game that Carly and I ever owned together was Pokemon Shield, which caused her to absolutely fall in love with Pokemon.
You bet it did. I loved finding the new Pokemon and learning all about them. What types they are, what moves they have, what they evolve into, what they're good against. So, with the joy that we both had playing games together and the passion that we shared for Pokemon, we were very excited to play the game together. Only, to our dismay, we had found another fantastic game with very underwhelming multiplayer. While a little easier than most, like any Pokemon game, these are great for Pokemon lovers around the world. That is, if you're playing in solo. In multiplayer, the experience isn't so great. Player 2 can't do much besides follow player 1 around like a lost puppy. If you stray too far away, or even if player 1 decides to talk to somebody, you get viciously sucked away into a different dimension. Unlike with Cappy, you don't even have the ability to interact with anything. No running into Pokemon or chatting it up with the townsfolk for you.
Basically, there are two core game mechanics that player 2 gets to experience. Number 1, both of you get to throw Pokeballs during wild encounters, which admittedly is a large portion of the game. And number 2, you get to play alongside player 1 in battles, which is actually one of the worst things to ever happen to the game. Okay, no, battling should definitely be part of the co-op experience, but the way that they implemented it was absolutely dreadful. The Let's Go games are already notoriously known for how easy they are. However, playing them in co-op makes the fights even more trivial. There's no need for strategy because the game gives both of you a Pokemon against a solo trainer who can only send out one Pokemon to combat your two.
And don't even think about trying to battle trainers or catch Pokemon in the water. Apparently, player 2 left her trusty surfboard back home because you disappear as soon as player 1 enters the water. In all honesty, playing Let's Go together is barely a step above watching someone else play it. There are a lot of things that would have made this game better in co-op, but that's for another video.
Like most of the other games on this list, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a fantastic solo experience. There are tons of wonderful abilities to discover and upgrade that will help you solve puzzles and progress through the game. Not to mention the mouthful modes that are quite reminiscent of Cappy's ability to turn Mario into anything, which grant you the ability to turn into a paraglider or even a vending machine. However, as we said in our review, a lot of what makes Kirby such a great solo game also makes it a less enjoyable co-op game.
In all honesty, playing as Bandana Waddle Dee just doesn't have the same appeal as playing as Kirby. First off, you don't have the option to use any of Kirby's spectacular copy abilities. While he is having a blast switching between Dragon Form and Gun-Ho Ranger, you are stuck as the same old spear-wielding Waddle Dee for the entirety of the game. But that's not even the worst part of being player 2. When Kirby uses his amazing new mouthful abilities, you're stuck to him like a flea on a dog. Kirby is a car racing against the clock. Bam! You're riding on his back with no control. Now he's a roller coaster? Hope you didn't have any plans to participate in that ride. Paragliding through the mountains? It seems like your controller has stopped working.
But even when Kirby isn't doing anything absolutely splendid, you better stick close by. Because if you don't, you will find yourself sucked back to him again and again, like you are attached to some sort of hyperactive bungee cord. On top of all that, a very large portion of the game is not even playable in co-op. There are fantastic challenge levels scattered throughout the overworld map where Kirby can go to practice his new abilities and earn currency for upgrading them. Only as soon as you enter this level, it's as if poor little Waddle Dee never even existed. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a gorgeous game with lots of fun to be had, and while it's far from the worst co-op game we have ever played, it's much better if you're playing solo. Or if you can manage to secure player 1's controller and leave her to suffer. But we look for games where neither of you feel neglected, so that's why Kirby had to make this list.
Now, as much as we like to claim that we know everything about all the co-op games, we definitely don't. So comment what your worst co-op game is, and let's hear from our friends over at Classic Co-op.
Hey, thanks for having us on. I'll just go ahead and ignore the fact that some of the games you chose would be on my top Switch co-op games list. Maybe we'll talk later about that. But right now, we wanted to bring everyone's attention to a really fun game called Bowser's Fury. You play as this unknown Italian guy and you collect things. This is the fun part I mentioned.
A second player is able to play as Baby Bowser. He can fly around, attack enemies, and collect more things. There are moments when this can be helpful, like when there's an out-of-reach collectible. Well, that's about it. Baby Bowser just can't keep up with Mario. He also isn't able to help at all during boss fights. So basically, unless you're a toddler, don't let your friends make you play this with them. You're better than that.
While we have been anxiously awaiting the day that we get our hands on a copy of 3D World, it seems that we will be navigating the world of Bowser's Fury solo.
WidoTree 2 is a game that would be fairly easily judged by its art style. You will either be drawn in or very discouraged by the game's minimalistic art. It's very colorful and blocky, and while it's no Breath of the Wild, the game's pretty good for the $13 they're asking. It's an open world 3D platformer that will have you playing as a cute tree on a journey to retrieve stolen tears and bring life back to the trees at home. There are a lot of different actions that you can perform, and the game's controls are actually really smooth. So the one real drawback in solo is whether you enjoy the art style.
While very cute, fun, and cheap, WidoTree 2 also offers local co-op for up to 4 players, which would be awesome if it wasn't so awful. Okay, awful might be a little strong. The additional players control the same way as player 1 and control pretty well. If this game was split screen, there wouldn't be much to complain about, but it's not. Meaning that, again, the camera is centered on player 1 and you are just going to have to deal with it. If you ever wander too far away and cannot find yourself anymore, you can always teleport back to player 1. The fact that you can get lost on screen or completely miss your platforming jumps because player 1 decided to look in a different direction makes the game a no-go on co-op for us.
If you didn't get enough bad co-op games from this video, go check out this video from Classic Co-op, where we help them talk about the worst co-op games of all time. We love you guys.
Y'all are awesome.